So I read 18 books this month, which is crazy and something that I will probably never ever do again in my life. I don't know what came over me. I wasn't really doing anything this month. I wasn't working. I was doing my master's program and I had a ton of free time. I didn't watch any shows. Literally all I did in my free time was read, and that's why I read 18 books this month, and it's actually really insane. So I hope you enjoy this video because I had a lot of really good books and I rediscovered the library this month, which is also part of my problem because my TBR was legitimately only 8 books and I read 18. In the hope that this video isn't so long, let's just jump right into it. So I started this month with The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith. I devoured this in one day, and it's not just because I wasn't doing anything this month besides reading. It's honestly because this book was so good. So this book follows Eden and it's broken up into 4 parts. It's freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year of high school, and she gets sexually assaulted, so trigger warning there. And it's basically her like coping with it and dealing with the emotional and physical trauma that happened with it, but it's just written so well. It's not written in like an attention grabby way. It's written just so well, and I feel like everybody needs to read this. It's just so good, and there's a second one coming out this year and I cannot wait to read it. I rated this one 5 stars, but this is like above 5 stars because even though I read it like the first day of June, I'm still thinking about this all the time. It's just written so well. If this was real life, I probably wouldn't be friends with Eden just because she becomes really self-destructive because of what happened to her, and she pushes a lot of people away, and I probably wouldn't be friends with her just because she does push people away, but I just fell in love with her throughout this book. Highly recommend this. Okay, the next book I read was also really good, and that was Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I read Part of Your World earlier this year and I really liked it. I wanted to see what the hype was about because I feel like everybody read that book, and so I was actually waiting for this one to come out because it's the second one in the series, and this is about Brianna and Jacob. They are both doctors, so it's a doctor romance, and Jacob has really bad anxiety and I have really bad anxiety, so it was really nice reading about that and seeing the representation because I get the struggle. It was a really cute romance book. Like, I was smiling the whole time. They're just so pure and so great. I rated it 4 stars and not 5 stars because they talk about TikTok, and that took me out of the story because I feel like TikTok has no place in modern books because it just, I don't know, it just felt cringy to me, especially since this is a contemporary adult romance. I don't know, the whole TikTok thing was just not good, and then there was miscommunication at the end of it, and that really annoyed me because they were just so perfect. I just needed them to be together, so that's why I rated it 4 stars instead of 5 stars, but it was really good. I think if you're looking for a good romance book that has like plot, I would definitely recommend this. I honestly want to go back and reread this. They're just so thoughtful towards each other, and also this book is told from both of their POVs. So you'll read a chapter or 2 from Bree's point of view and then from Jacob's point of view, which I really enjoyed. Also, you get the characters from Part of Your World. They do show up in this one, which is really fun to see. You don't have to read one before the other, but I definitely recommend reading both of them, so they're really good. Also, look how cute this cover is. Okay, next I read a really hyped up series. It's a trilogy and the 3rd book isn't out yet, so it is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I have heard that you do have to read the Caravel series before you read this. That is complete lies because I didn't read it. I have no interest in reading it, and after reading this I definitely don't have an interest in reading it, but you really don't have to. Like, there was nothing that was confusing about this book that made me be like, whoa, I wish I would have read Caravel. Nothing like that at all. This book follows Evangeline, and she is watching the love of her life get married, and she can't have that, so she makes a deal with the Prince of Hearts, which everyone's like, you shouldn't make a deal with the Prince of Hearts, and you are watching it unfold throughout this book why she shouldn't have made the deal to to stop that wedding. That's basically what this book is about. It's very fairy tale-esque. You're just kind of watching things happen to Evangeline after she makes the deal with the Prince of Hearts, and the Prince of Hearts is very thoroughly in this book, so it's basically following her and him and the consequences of that deal that she made with him. So the whole book is like, you shouldn't have made a deal. And that's all really I can tell you about this book without giving too much of it away. First of all, it's just so pretty. I'm not upset that I bought it, even though I only rated it 3 stars. Only 3 stars. I will say it was very easy to understand and they're so fast to read through. So even though I didn't love this book, I'm not upset because it didn't take me that much time to read it. I genuinely feel like nothing happens in this book. Like I'm just reading and reading and reading, and then all of a sudden I'm on page 300, I'm almost done with the book, and then I'm like, whoa, what the hell happened? I literally couldn't tell you what happened because I feel like nothing happened in this book. I didn't feel connected to the characters. This is not very memorable. There wasn't enough uniqueness to the story where I was like, oh my god, I just like need to read it. But I decided that I would read the second one, which is The Ballad of Never After. It's not out in paperback yet, so I got it on my Kindle. And you know what? I also gave that one 3 stars. I will say with the second one, you get more of the Prince of Hearts, and I kind of love him as a character. I think he's really interesting, and I do love morally gray characters, and that's very much what he is. But I also feel like not a lot happened in the book. I think I was just expecting so much because so many people rate it 5 stars, but it is just nothing that's making me want to tell you guys to go read it. There's so much better fantasy on the market, and this series is not it. So 3 stars. Yes, I will be reading the third one because the second one did leave off kind of on a cliffhanger, and I kind of do want to know what happens, and it's easy to understand, and it'll only take me a day to read, but it's a very mid series and I don't think it's worth the hype. Then I read Fourth Wing because it blew up overnight. I didn't know what the heck was going on, but I opened TikTok and everybody was talking about this book called Fourth Wing, so I was like, you know what, let me jump on the bandwagon and see what this is about. And I did, and you know what, I really liked it. If you don't know what Fourth Wing is about, I don't know how you don't, because I feel like everybody has heard about it. It is about Violet, and she goes to join the school of dragon riders, and she gets a dragon, and the dragons have personalities, and then she has a love interest, and there's this war, and it's just epic fantasy thing. So if you're into fantasy and you like dragons and you want romance, this is your book. It's so good. I understand why everybody was so obsessed with it, but I only gave it 4 stars, okay? And this is why. I did not like the romance in it, which is like shocking because everybody loves it. I just thought it was so cringy, and every single time they would talk to each other towards the middle end of the book, I honestly just wanted to skip through those parts because it just wasn't realistic. The dialogue wasn't realistic. It wasn't like good writing, and I just couldn't stand behind that. So that's why I gave it 4 stars, but everything else was really, really good. The plot was really good. It was really interesting. It ended on a huge cliffhanger. I already pre-ordered the second book, like totally recommend it, but I just didn't like the romance aspect of it. Okay, then I discovered the library, but I already returned a bunch of books, so I'm going to go ahead and insert the clip where I talked about the book that I already returned. So I'm gonna start with the worst book first, and that is the Kissing Quotient. I'm covering up like identification things, that's why I'm holding them weird, but this is the Kiss Quotient by Helen Wong, I think you say. This book was all over TikTok. This book is literally destroyed. People have been checking this out like crazy, and I didn't really know what it was about. I thought it was like a cute kind of Allie Hazelwood vibes because of like the math, you know what I'm saying? It was not that. This book is about Stella, and she's very inexperienced sexually, and she has Asperger's. So she doesn't want to tell anyone about that, so she hired a male escort, Michael, to like teach her how to do stuff, and then they end up falling in love. That's basically what this book is about. It was not good at all. First of all, I started this book, it was really spicy really fast, and I was like, whoa, this is not what I was expecting, because I literally kids read this, but whatever. It just felt so cringy to me the entire time. I gave it 2 stars. 2 stars. I don't think a book had been this low for me in a while. 2 stars, because a lot of people like that it has the representation for autism, but I just feel like it was done in such a bad way. Like, I just don't think it was done very well at all. It was really cringy. The scenes were so cringy. Like, he keeps pushing her when they have their sessions and she feels so uncomfortable, and I'm just like, please stop. I regret having read this. I should have DNF'd it, but I had to finish it, and I don't recommend it. The Kiss Quotient, it was a 2 stars for me. I got this book. It just came out. I had never heard of it, but it's Ciao for Now by Kate Bromley. Now, I gave this a 3 stars, so it was slightly a step up from the Kissing Quotient. Thank God for that. But basically, this book is about Violet, and her friends go to Italy for an internship. They're fashion designers, and she really wants to make it big, and so she's like really trying her best at this internship, learning a lot about fashion designing. And then her professor's son is Matteo, and they have a little thing going on, and she gets distracted, and like the internship starts to slack. But it's about their little love story. It's really cute. It's set in Italy. It wasn't like my favorite thing in the world, but it also wasn't bad. It was a cute little summer read. If you see it, if you happen to pass by it, yeah, I would recommend it if you like little romances, but it's not something that you're probably gonna be thinking about for a long time. It was just a cute little summer read. It was a kind of meh, but it wasn't like super bad, and it wasn't cringy. Okay, and then the last kind of romance book that I read from the library this month is called Someone Else's Bucket List by Amy T. Matthews. Now, this one also just kind of came out. This book is about Jody. Her older sister Bree dies from cancer, but before she died, she recorded all of these secret messages, and the secret message is from Bree, and she has this bucket list that she wants her sister to complete for her, and if her sister completes these items, then all of her debt will be paid off, and they're really struggling for money, so Jody has to do this. She wants to do it to honor Bree, but also she's kind of an introvert and doesn't want to do all this stuff. And then the last item on the bucket list is for her to fall in love. So that's where the love story comes in. I like this book. I'm a sucker for like sister stories. I have a sister, and I'm a sucker for it. I read Sunset by, I think it's Jessie Cave, last year when I was in England. I got the book and I just fell in love with it. I just love that book so much, so I was hoping for this one to kind of give me those vibes. Kind of, not all the way there. I gave this book a 3.5, 3.25, 3.5 because it was definitely above 3 stars, but something about it was not quite 4 stars to me. This book dragged on a lot. Like, there were a lot of times where it was just really dragging. It did not need to be 400 pages at all, but there were some times where I was really emotionally invested in this book, and I cried at the end. Alright, these last 3 books that I have to talk about are phenomenal. Okay, so we have Our Missing Heart by Celeste, and then her last name is NG. I don't know how to pronounce it, and I don't want to butcher it. I love every single book that she puts out. I think this is only the 3rd one, but I've read every single book that she has, and I've seen on Goodreads all of the reviews are really middle of the road. They're like 3 stars, and I don't understand it because I love her writing so much. It definitely was my least favorite book by her, but I still loved it. So let me explain to you a little bit about what it is. So this is actually a dystopian novel. I didn't know that going into it, and I was so confused because it's set in America. She uses all of these American terms, and so I'm looking up, I'm like, did this really happen in history? But it didn't. It's just a dystopian novel. This is about Bird. He's 12 years old and he lives in a society that's really pro-America. They have this law that was passed called PACT, and it basically states that if you're un-American, then bad things happen. So obviously targeting Asian Americans and Asians in the US, and if anything is deemed by society as un-American, they can take your kids away. The government can do all sorts of horrible things. They can take you away for sharing anti-American views. So it's definitely dystopian, but also taking something and hate that has happened and is happening in the United States and kind of playing around with the idea of what if this went further. That's why I had to look up if some of this stuff happened, because I was like, I don't think it did, but also I wasn't sure, and that was really sad about the state of the country. Throughout the book, Bird is really lost. He's trying to find his mom because his mom's kind of the leader of the movement, but he doesn't know how to find her. His dad is white and he's kind of acting like she never existed because he's trying to protect him. It's just a crazy book. The first half of the book is told from Bird's perspective, and then the second half of the book is told from his mother's perspective, and you kind of get to find out how the world got to be how it is in this novel. I gave it 4 stars. I think like 3.75, touching of 4 stars is what this book is. It's really good. I just love her writing. I understand how it's not for everyone, but I just fell in love. All right, next we have a 5-star book and that is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. I freaking love this book. I ate it up. This book is about Jeanette McCurdy and her life. She had an abusive mother, but she also loved her mom. This book is kind of about her growing up and that relationship and how she grappled with it and dealt with it, and it's just so good. Like, even the prologue was just so shocking to me. It was just, the writing is so good, so props to her. Really good. It made me understand her a lot more, and she talks about like certain scenes in iCarly, and I went back and watched them, and it made so much sense what she was talking about, like how she was feeling in the moment when she was filming them, and then I got to see the scene on YouTube and I was like, whoa, that makes a lot of sense. 10 stars. Anxious People by Frederick Backman. I read A Man Called Ave. I loved it so much. I rated it 5 stars. It was just so quirky and I just loved all the characters. The same thing happened with this book. I didn't know anything going into it. I thought it was going to be about something completely different than what it was about. I was so wrong. I don't even know how to describe this book. So basically, it's about a bank robber and a hostage situation. So there's, I think, like 8 hostages. The whole book is just kind of about the bank robber and the hostage situation and how everyone's all connected. It's really about life and so much deeper than how it starts off, and that's what I love about his books. I've only read 2. This is only the second one that I've read by him, but it's just amazing. Like, honestly, so amazing. I rated it a 4.75 because I was grappling whether or not to rate it a 4 or a 5 stars. Definitely more than 4 stars because I was sobbing like a baby after I read this book. It was so good. It just like hits you. But there were some parts of this book that I feel like could have been edited. It was dragging on just a little bit at times, not a ton, but it was dragging on a little bit. Some of the books, you know how some of them like you wouldn't recommend to everyone because of the genre. I would recommend this book to everybody. When I finished it, I was literally lying in bed like clutching it because it just made me feel so many things and think about my life, and his writing is so good. Like, he's a huge inspiration to me because I just don't know how he writes like that. His brain is just so good. Okay, now we're back. I have some more library books to share with you guys. Honestly, just so many. I don't know how I read this so fast. So the next book is Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. First of all, I don't know why I read this book because I read The Love Hypothesis and I didn't like it. I just don't like books like that, like romance without any other plot. But this one had a lot more STEM in it, which I really liked, that it wasn't just like romance, but I still gave it 3 stars. I don't really know how to rate these books, honestly, because I knew going into it probably wasn't going to be my favorite, but I did like it better than The Love Hypothesis for sure. The main characters are named Elsie and Jack Smith. Literally Jack Smith. I couldn't get over, and I'm still not over the fact that his name is Jack Smith, because that is just ridiculous. But the book was cute. It wasn't anything unstandard for Ali Hazelwood. It's pretty much what you would expect from an Ali Hazelwood book, and I'm glad I read it, but I don't think I'm going to be reading any more of her book, because honestly they're very, very predictable. There's not much to say. Okay, then I was on my Frederick Backman kick still, and I got the memoir that he wrote. It's called Things My Son Needs to Know About the World. I rated this 4 stars. Honestly, it felt very, very personal to me. Like he was literally writing this book to his son. He talked about things that happened in his life, his son growing up, conversations that he had with his wife. It's funny, and I kind of understand now why his books are the way that they are, because he's just so interesting. He's such an interesting guy, and I loved reading this book, but I honestly only found it worthwhile because I'm such a fan of his books. That's why I read this memoir, but it was good. If you're a fan of his books, I would recommend it. Along that same vein, I read another book by him. It's called Britt-Marie Was Here. I rated this book 4 stars. I really liked it. It's about Britt-Marie and her life. She is very OCD. She's a clean freak, and she separated from her husband, and she goes and works for a bunch of kids and is a soccer coach, even though she had no idea about anything with soccer, and it really has great found family. She makes friends with a literal rat. It's just so quirky and fun, like all of his books are. I loved it. I do wish that I would have waited to read this until I was really like in need of a Frederick Backman book, because I feel like his books are such vibes. They're just such quirky vibes, and I love it, and I want to read all of his books, but I'm gonna wait to read the last couple of books that I haven't read by him because they're just such vibes. I feel like Beartown is a little bit different than like his other books. I feel like it's a little bit less quirky fun, but I need to look into that. But I definitely want to get through his entire backlist because one of my favorite authors for sure. Okay, then I read Billy Summers by Stephen King. I read this because of Haley Pham, and she loves it, and Stephen King. Now I actually do like Stephen King. I have read his novels in the past. I recently read The Bazaar of Bad Dreams. I own that book, and I do want to read The Institute because I've had that sitting on my shelf for a while. But I never heard of Billy Summers. It is a fairly recent book, so I decided to pick it up. It's about Billy Summers, and he is an assassin, but he only kills people who are bad. He's doing one last assassin, and then he's gonna retire, but alas, so many things go wrong. And this book is massive. It's literally like over 500 pages. It's crazy. I love Stephen King's writing. I think it's really easy to understand, and it looks intimidating, but it's a lot less intimidating than it looks. However, I gotta say, this one disappointed me. I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't very memorable. It was good, and Billy was funny and complicated, but it wasn't worth it for me to have spent so much time reading this book, because it just wasn't memorable, and there were some things that were funny, but like it just wasn't his best work in my opinion. But if you are looking to get started into Stephen King, or you don't like horror, I would recommend this one. I actually do like horror and scary things. That's why I think that this one missed the mark for me. I read Carrie Soto Is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I have wanted to read this one ever since it came out, probably even before it came out, but I just never got myself to actually go ahead and buy it. So I checked it out from my library, and I'm so glad I did. This one is in the same universe as her like historical things, so like Malibu Rising, Didi Jones and the Sixth, and Evelyn Hugo. They all have interlapping, that's not a word, they all have like the same characters kind of in them that make appearances. And Carrie Soto is a tennis player. She's 37. She was like the world's best player, and then she decided to make a comeback after retiring for 7 years. So it's kind of about that. It goes between the past and the present, and it is so good. I gave this one 5 stars. I honestly think it deserves more than that. It deserves all the stars that I can give it because it is literally so good. Carrie is just such a badass character. She's somebody that not a lot of people in the public like because she's very sure of herself, she's very arrogant, and she's not very nice to the other players that she plays, and so everyone's like, oh my god, she's the worst. But I was rooting for her the whole time. It was great. I was just so like nervous and anxious when she was playing her matches, which is so funny because I was literally on the edge of my seat. I needed to know what happened next, and I just devoured every single word. So I actually might buy my own copy so I can annotate it, and I'm definitely going to be rereading it. Definitely highly recommend. Carrie Soto is back. Okay, only 2 more books. So next we have Normal People by Sally Rooney. This is the large print version. I needed to read this to see what it was about. It was so polarizing. On Goodreads there were reviews for like 5 stars, 1 star, 2, 3, 4. Like I don't know. There was no consensus on this book, so I just needed to know like what the hype was about, or the unhype, if you will. I don't know how to rate this. I gave it a 3 stars. I don't know. I really just don't know. This was about Connell and Marianne, and there's actually a Hulu series. I haven't watched it. They are the 2 teens, and I followed them into college, and they're always kind of gravitating towards each other, and they have this secret relationship, but it's never out in the public, and then they're always with other people, so they're always like gravitating towards each other, but they're never like quite together, and it just didn't make me feel good when I finished this book. I was like, what the heck did I just read? Like, I don't even know how to describe it. I feel like the story is unfinished. Like it needs another 100 pages to wrap up really well because it didn't feel wrapped up, and it's just there was no point in the story where I was like, yes, this is how it's meant to be. But the writing is so good. Like I really enjoyed the writing, and I feel the chemistry between these 2 characters, and I don't even feel that in books like Love theoretically. Like I don't feel that chemistry, but I really do in this book, and that's why I don't know how to rate it. I would recommend it. I think it's worth the read. Yes, it's annoying that she didn't use quotation marks, but you get over it soon. So let me know what you think about this down below, but I don't know how to rate it, so that's why I gave it 3. And last but not least, this month I read The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I have wanted to read this book for a really long time, and I just never did. So I checked it out from the library, and I have the other 2 on hold. They haven't come in yet. This one took me a while to read. It's kind of hard to understand. Like you really have to pay attention, but it was so good. It was really good. So this is a fantasy trilogy, and it follows Rin, and she really doesn't want to end up married. She lives in a really poor town. She doesn't live a great life, and she really wants to get out of her situation. So she studies really hard to get into one of the top military schools, and she gets in and she goes to this school, and she's basically learning how to be a warrior, and it's just crazy. It deals with spirits and gods and powers, and there's a war that breaks out, and it's about her fighting that, and it's definitely very adult. There's very horrible things that happen in this book, but I just need to read the next 2. It's just so good. If you really like easy to understand fantasy with romance, don't read this because there's not really any of that in this book, but it's just so good, and I feel like it's gonna pay off in the end of the other 2 books because I feel like something really epic is gonna happen. But the character development is crazy because Ren starts off like really unsure of herself and just like a child basically, but she ends the book like so much different, and it's just crazy to see. So I highly recommend this if you are looking for a more advanced fantasy read to read. I can't wait to finish the series, and I'll keep you guys updated as I go along. So I'm guessing that this was a crazy long video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like this video, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.